to come on here and just say hello to everybody. If you're coming for my next workshop, which is called line language, it's basically mark making for calm and flow. So if I had to think about the kind of things that I would gather in my home or anything that would allow me to make markings on my drawings, I would probably bust out some of these things. I want to show you a little bit that it could be many other things besides all this to somebody else is junk. But the good old famous bubble wraps that you get in packages, they have ones that are bigger as well. If you want to use any of that, I use a lot of toilet paper rolls or paper towel rolls because you can make really nice markings with the circles. Those are something like that. And then sometimes I find really interesting shapes of foams. I don't even need to cut it out, but you can get larger foams that come from packaging and cut them up and make your own shapes as you wish. That's something that I would do. Now, the hardware store is the most amazing places where you can find and use tools that you already probably have, or if not, you can go to the hardware store and have multiple purposes for some of these painting things that you do in the house. So I use these, I use this, and I actually bought this in the Netherlands hardware store. I don't know, sometimes I go to, when I travel, I like to shop at local hardware stores or any kind of art supply stores and just check out what they have. And it's my way of having souvenirs that I enjoy, and I don't buy the conventional touristy kind of souvenirs. And so that's what I do. And you can also have these rollers. There's different sizes you can get to move paint around. Again, this is another painting roller. And sometimes if you want, you could take this out and put rollers, these toilet paper rolls, and you can put them in here and actually cut them out and shape them. And sometimes I put string around and I wrap it around, and or even rubber bands, and make markings from that. So these I've bought, they're like plastic, let's just say, I mean, you don't even have to buy these. You could just buy, you could always use credit cards and just cut them out to shapes that you want. And also you could even cut them so that they have these ridges or anything like that. But I like having these just to have around. So you don't, again, look, before you buy, look in your house and see what you can find. These are makeup applicators. So whenever I use stencils, I often use these to dab down. I do have, I think my favorite ones are the triangle ones, because when you use a stencil, let me see if I can find a stencil that I made. So I make these stencils from my Cricut machines, these things, and what I do is sometimes I take a piece of paper and I dab with these makeup applicators, which is awesome because they're inexpensive, because you can put a bunch of them together and make shapes with them, which is really, really cool. So again, you could also use stencils to make a lot of mark making with your own. I do design stencils, and you can buy the digital thing, and if you have a cutting machine, you can cut it out, or you could print it and put your, if you have an acetate, you just come on top and make a marker on it and then cut it out with an X-Acto knife. That you could do if you don't have a cutting machine, but a lot of great marks can be made from stencils that you have, which is fabulous. What I don't have with me right now is stamps. You could use stamps as well. But again, you can make stamps from anything, from these kind of foam stuff. And also in vegetables or fruits or anything like that. Obviously I have tons of these sponges to make marks, and my good old chopsticks. I have a million of these chopsticks, and I use them to make marks on my paint as well, and old forks and knives, plastic knives, and I don't even remember where I got these. I think some medical stuff. that's another thing. If you find any medical old supply stuff that you could use to mark things, they're kind of cool to make your own markings. And I also use old pens as well, and using the tips from them to make markings as well. I think, let me see what else I might have that. I never throw away old brushes because I love how old brushes dry out, and I love the way the techniques come out of the markings from it. And it just, I don't even make it wet. I like leave it dry and I dip my paint and I pour it on. I'll show it eventually when I do my art, when I paint my whenever I'm doing intuitive art anyway. So you'll see how I use old brushes. And also, what else? I see these foam brushes, I use those as well. Here's more of these swab sponges. And then you can even go to the dollar store and buy really old, not really old, really cheap brushes. Don't feel like you have to buy the most expensive stuff to make amazing intuitive art, or your hand is probably the greatest tool ever. You can make marks with your hands as well. So don't feel like you have to spend a lot on great high quality supplies to make amazing markings on painting. That's kind of my tip on that. Don't throw away your old toothbrush. That would be, well, I should encourage everyone to keep everything, but if you find a tool like a toothbrush and you like it, use it, because it makes really cool markings. Ooh, that's kind of dusty. So when you could put paint on it and you could flicker it, the paint, that's also cool. This is really cool. These are like cotton tip applicator. They're used for when you're doing eyeshadows and stuff, but this could really be used for mark making as well. That's that. And let's see, I have so many kinds of brushes. You'll see that I love collecting different kinds of brushes from hardware stores, from art supply stores. I just love them. And I love these Chinese brushes, like sumi brushes. Let me see if I have, oh, here's a big one I have. Just the strokes are different with these big brushes. They're fabulous. I love that. And I also take I don't throw anything away, which is probably a problem for me, but I just think it's so, all the tools can be used for many different things. Let's see here. I sometimes use these water brushes, they're travel, and I add water in it to also liquefy any of the paint. And if I want to add more water, I don't even need to travel to be using this. It's just great that you can put water and just make mark makings with it, because the paint may need just a little bit of water, and then this already has a brush, so you could use that, which is fabulous. Let's see what else I have here. I don't think I have anything that's extraordinary different. A lot of them are paint brushes. Then you could use sticks. If you have sticks if you go in your yard and you see some sticks. I also have dried flowers as well, or dried leaves that I've dried, and I use it to make markings with. I can demonstrate that later on. But those are some of the basic stuff that you think about when you're coming to my class. I want you to start kind of asking yourself, what is it that I need that would be very interesting to make marks with? But you don't know until you try it. So what I would do is I have a bin where you can put all these really interesting tools that will make really interesting markings. Again, don't be afraid to go in your pantries or go into your stash of hardware stuff that has these interesting textures in the tools, provided your significant other is okay with you using it, because you could always wash it as well. And acrylic is really easy to wash off most things. But I'd recommend that if you're afraid to use the tool and you're afraid to ruin the tool, I say don't use it, because then you don't feel free to create and make. And what happens is it stifles you. So that's why I always recommend using inexpensive tools that you're not going to be afraid to ruin. Because the moment you start being afraid to use your supplies or tools, it just hinders you from that freedom to do as you wish and really create from within. So that's what I want to teach here and really help all of us to allow us to be free. The freedom to not overthink, to allow our minds to rest while we are creating. Because that flow will come out more naturally when you don't feel restricted in the sense of, oh my goodness, am I going to ruin my partner's or my husband's tool if I use this? Forget that. If you're really concerned about, ask your partner, I could end up ruining this tool, and just let it be. And if he says yes, and if he says no, move on and find other tools in the house, because there are plenty. If you even look at your recycle bin, there is tons of stuff. So please don't hesitate, and I will give you more tips on how to prepare for my next workshop. But this is a good starting point of what to think about, what to look for when you're gathering your type of tools that you want to use to make any markings. Again, don't feel that you have to buy anything out there, because there are stuff that you probably have in your home. I do think you need some brushes, but go in your bins and look for old paint brushes. I'm sure there's brushes in the house. Even, your basting brushes, you could, if you no longer use it for cooking or you have extra, use that. Just go in your kitchen. Are there any tools in the kitchen that you no longer use but want to use for painting or art making or crafting? Now, once I use anything for my crafts or painting, I do not put it back in my kitchen. I already committed that once it leaves my kitchen and it goes into my craft, it is no longer going back into the kitchen. So that's just one thing that I recommend, and hopefully this helps you to get your mind and really encourage you to think about the things that are around the home, because it really is there. If you just open the drawers in your closet or in your kitchen drawers or in your recycle bin, they're all there for you to use. And even if you didn't have a brush, there is ways to make marks, because you've got your two hands and you can absolutely make beautiful stuff with it. So come join me February 27th at Riseilience in person, and hopefully we will have a great time to some mark making, so that we can use those collages or papers that with our mark makings and make other beautiful art with it. So please look at the Riseilience workshop that I will put on the caption here, and stop and join us, and hopefully see you there. And again, have a great day, and remember, make time for yourself, because you deserve it, and you deserve that time to really just nurture your own creativity, not just for the sake of creating, but also for the sake of your own wellness practice. I don't believe it's just an art practice. I really think it's part of a wellness practice. It's a way to connect with your heart, mind, and your soul, and really add a sense of discovery and a sense of who you want to become. Because once you learn how to follow your own intuition, you make better decisions. You learn to understand what you don't like as well. It's just as important as what you do like. So if anything else, at the end of it all, you just have fun, what a great way to enjoy your life is to put fun and laughter and joy a bunch of others that the same connection as you. And hopefully we built this great community of really helping each other nurture our creativity. Have a great one. Bye.